Italy is a true powerhouse in the European fruit market, importing over 600,000 tons of bananas every year. But as consumer demand for avocados skyrockets and local persimmon production reaches a tipping point, the industry is facing a massive challenge. With complex supply chains and global geopolitical tensions threatening the stability of traditional ripening methods, how is Italy evolving to stay ahead? Today, we're exploring a major shift, a new era of precision and safety that is officially transforming the Italian fresh produce sector. Let's dive into the future of fruit ripening.
Have you ever really wondered how that banana you buy at the store is always perfectly yellow? Well, behind that simple piece of fruit is this massive, high-stakes industry. And right now, it's going through a quiet but huge revolution. So today, we're going to head to Italy to see how new market pressures and some really smart technology are completely changing the game of getting fruit perfectly ripe. Okay, so we've all seen this, right? The banana, making its journey from green and kind of starchy to that perfect sweet yellow we all love. It looks so simple, just a natural process. But when you're talking about millions and millions of bananas getting this transformation just right, on time, every single time, well, that's a precise and very high-stakes science. And that really is the central question, isn't it? How do you take that delicate biological process and scale it up to an industrial level? How do you make sure the avocado you buy on a Tuesday is just as amazing as the one you buy on Friday? This is the massive challenge facing the fresh produce industry today. To really understand this challenge, let's zoom in on a key European market, Italy. Over here, the demand for perfectly ripened fruit is absolutely immense. And it really boils down to three key players you'd find in any fruit bowl. First up, the heavyweight champion, bananas. Italy imports over 600,000 tons of them every single year. That makes it one of the largest banana markets in all of Europe, and you better believe every single one of those bananas has to be ripened in a perfectly controlled environment. And next, you've got the rising star, avocados. The European market for avocados just hit a value of 3.5 billion euros in 2024, and it's on track to become the second most traded tropical fruit in the world by 2030. In Italy, people can't get enough of them, which means the need for precision ripening is just exploding right along with it. And finally, we've got the local staple, persimmons. Italy is a top producer in Europe. And for this fruit, using ethylene gas to kickstart the ripening process isn't just common, it's a critical, absolutely standard part of the process to get them ready for market. So, okay, we've got this massive demand for bananas, avocados, and persimmons. And the secret ingredient that makes it all possible is a simple gas called ethylene. It's what triggers the whole ripening process. But here's the thing. The traditional way of getting that gas is becoming a major, major headache. Just look at the diagram on the left. The old supply chain is, well, it's a mess. See, ethylene is an industrial commodity. That means fruit ripeners are competing with everyone from plastics manufacturers to giant chemical plants. This creates a really volatile situation where geopolitical conflicts can cause sudden shortages and huge price spikes. For a ripener, that's a massive risk. A single delayed shipment could ruin an entire warehouse full of fruit. And hey, this isn't just some theory. As Greg Akins, the CEO of Catalytic Generators, points out, relying on this external, unstable supply is becoming a serious business risk. I mean, you can't promise perfect fruit if you can't even guarantee you'll have the gas you need to ripen it. The old way of doing things uses these big, heavy, high-pressure cylinders of ethylene gas. And as you can see, this creates a triple threat. Your supply is unreliable, there are safety risks, and it's a logistical nightmare of regulations and transportation. So if depending on the outside world for ethylene is the problem, what's the solution? Well, what if you could just make it yourself, right where you need it? This brings us to the innovation at the heart of this entire shift. And this is it, an on-site ethylene generator. Think of it like a coffee maker, but for fruit ripening. It's a simple machine that produces a small, controlled amount of ethylene gas right there inside the ripening room, exactly when you need it. No more cylinders, no more supply chain headaches. And the process is incredibly easy to operate. You just pour in a liter of a special liquid concentrate, and the machine does all the rest. The magic is in the chemistry. A catalytic converter inside safely and continuously turns that liquid into pure ethylene gas. You can literally watch the liquid level go down so you know for sure it's working. Greg Akins really emphasizes this point. The entire system is built for simplicity and safety. It just takes all the guesswork and the risk out of the equation, which lets ripeners focus on what they do best, managing the fruit itself. So, here's the crucial takeaway. You're moving from a supply that's vulnerable, risky, and complicated to one that's dedicated, totally safe, and incredibly simple. It's a direct solution to every single one of the problems that the old system had. Okay, so we've got this game-changing solution. Now, let's see how it's actually being rolled out in Italy to tackle those very challenges we talked about earlier. The first big step was right here, at Macfrut, which is one of Italy's most important agricultural trade shows. Catalytic Generators made their debut there to get in front of Italian ripeners, hear about their needs, and tell their story directly. And they have a very clear game plan. Right now, it's all about building visibility. In the short term, the focus is on supporting the very first companies that adopt the system. And looking ahead, they expect to see significant growth within the next 6 to 12 months as more and more ripeners make the switch. And here's the smart part. They aren't going it alone. They're building a local network of trusted partners, like De Chloe in central Italy and Brincato down in Sicily, to make sure there's dedicated expertise and support on the ground, right across the country. So, what should you take away from all this? It's pretty simple. The future of fruit ripening in Italy is moving on-site. It's a model that's way safer because it gets rid of high-pressure gas. It's more reliable because it ends that dependence on volatile supply chains. And it's specialized, backed by local experts who focus only on ripening. It really leaves you with a final thought. The next time you're at the grocery store and you pick up that perfectly ripe banana or avocado, just take a second to think about the incredible journey it took. Chances are, you'll be thinking an unseen, incredibly precise science that's being revolutionized one ripening room at a time.
Welcome to the debate. Right now, behind the sealed doors of massive industrial warehouses, there's a 3.5 billion euro European fruit market just hanging by a thread. Or, well, hanging by a highly pressurized gas cylinder, really.
Yeah, the scale is just massive.
Right, because Italy imports over 600,000 tons of bananas annually, and they are scrambling to feed this surging demand for avocados. So precise ripening is literally the only thing keeping this whole supply chain from collapsing into like a mountain of spoiled produce.
Exactly. And the established method for triggering that ripening, which is relying on these heavy, highly volatile cylinders of industrial ethylene gas, well, it's actively being challenged. I mean, we recently saw this at the Macfrut Agricultural Trade Show.
Yeah, and actually, if you're watching our video feed right now, looking at these actual photos we have up on the background, like these animated real pictures straight from the trade show floor, you can see Catalytic Generators showcasing their new system. It creates ethylene directly on site using a specialized liquid concentrate.
Right. Which sets up our core disagreement today.
Definitely. Because I look at the shift to on-site generation as a mandatory paradigm shift. It is the definitive solution to insulating Italy's fruit supply from, dangerous high-pressure risks and global supply chain shocks.
And speaking as an agronomy engineer, Fawad Amlal, my perspective is that treating a new piece of hardware as some kind of silver bullet completely ignores the actual biological reality of what happens inside those warehouses. Like, changing how you deliver the gas doesn't magically solve the hyperlocal, microscopic challenges of actually ripening the fruit.
I mean, let's just dive right into that supply chain vulnerability, though.
Sure.
Because when operators use traditional high-pressure cylinders, they are relying on the exact same massive global gas companies that supply heavy industry.
Right, the broad chemical providers.
Exactly. So any geopolitical conflict creates sudden pricing volatility and unexpected shortages. By generating ethylene directly inside the ripening room from that specialized liquid concentrate, Ethy-Gen II, you bypass those global bottlenecks entirely.
But do you?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's the difference between relying on a volatile global commodity and having absolute operational control in your own facility.
But wait, are we actually getting more control, or are we just trading one dependency for another?
How do you mean?
Well, you're replacing reliance on broad industrial gas providers with reliance on, whoever manufactures this one highly specialized proprietary liquid. The hardware might be sitting in a warehouse in Italy, sure, but the fuel for that hardware is single-sourced.
Wait, let me pause you there.
Yeah?
When you say single-sourced bottleneck, you mean just because the liquid concentrate comes from a specific supplier rather than a generic gas market?
Exactly. If the supply line for that specific concentrate experiences a disruption, your beautiful stainless steel generator just becomes a really expensive paperweight.
I mean, technically true, but that dedicated supply chain is exclusively focused on agriculture. Unlike broad chemical providers who will absolutely prioritize heavy industry over fruit ripeners during a massive shortage.
That is a fair point, but
Plus, just the sheer operational elegance solves so many logistical nightmares. An operator literally pours a liter of liquid into the tank, and it continuously converts it into vapor.
yeah, the IV drip analogy.
Right. You don't have to lug around explosive heavy cylinders. It's like replacing a volatile chemical sledgehammer with an IV drip. And we are already seeing local agricultural suppliers in regions like Umbria and Sicily adopting this because it just, fundamentally simplifies the job.
Sure, the machine is easy to use. Pouring liquid into a tank is simple. But that operational simplicity completely masks the staggering biological complexity happening inside the box.
Biology's complex, sure, but
Right, so think about a high-density load. Thousands of tightly packed crates. Getting gas to penetrate that mass flawlessly requires incredibly precise microclimate management.
which I'd argue a continuous low-emission generator provides much better than just blasting gas from a pressurized tank.
But the gas is just the trigger. The fruit is the engine. I mean, take bananas, for example. They are highly climacteric.
Right?
Once you hit them with a tiny bit of ethylene, they create a massive biological spike. They produce their own natural ethylene and intense heat that must be aggressively vented.
So you need good ventilation.
Yes, but then avocados have entirely different respiration rates. They require drastically more delicate gas concentration management. Otherwise, they just over-ripen and rot from the inside out.
Which nobody wants.
Exactly. And then you have mature, local staples like persimmons, which require highly specific post-harvest timing. The true challenge for Italian operators isn't just safely producing the gas, it's mastering the agronomic variables of the fruit itself.
Okay, I completely agree that the biology is incredibly complex, but honestly, that is exactly why the hardware has to be foolproof.
To take one variable out of the equation?
Yes. Decentralized, inherently safe ethylene generation isn't meant to replace your agronomic expertise. It is the critical technological baseline.
I see what you're saying, but
You simply cannot perfect the biological symphony of ripening an avocado if you are constantly worrying about gas leaks, pressure drops, or inconsistent delivery from outdated cylinders.
look, I don't disagree that safety and supply stability are important. Not at all. But we cannot let the appeal of shiny new technology overshadow the reality of multi-category fruit maturation.
It's not overshadowing, it's enabling.
But upgrading your kitchen doesn't automatically make you a Michelin star chef. A state-of-the-art generator is an excellent tool, but it is not an agronomist. The biological constraints will always dictate the final quality of the fruit.
And my perspective is that you can't cook at all if you can't guarantee your stove will safely turn on.
Fair enough.
The shift we saw at the Macfrut trade show is really just the beginning of a much larger transformation in the industry.
It absolutely is.
It forces us to ask a crucial question as we look at the future of European agriculture. As supply chains face increasing pressure, is our ultimate anchor the cutting-edge hardware we invent to protect our processes, or the deep biological expertise we cultivate to understand them?
That is the real question.
We will leave that for you to decide. Thanks for tuning in to The Debate.